Yes, people, welcome back to the channel. Um, and yeah, so today we got um, uh, another cricket show, second stream of the day. Um, and first, I got a better because it's sports. Two teams I don't like. Yeah, welcome, Manny. Welcome.
Hanno, good to see you. I mean,
Yeah.
you can't. I don't know why you call me a traitor as such, but the clues in in the title. I mean, my primary loyalty is towards England. I was born and brought up there, had my childhood there, supported England ever since I was a child, so that doesn't change. But I mean,
Yeah.
India was close to my heart. You know the score.
Seems like just uh, as I, I how do you pronounce his name? I,
Assad.
I, Assad. I think he's having connection issues, but we will try. Assad, you're there?
Yes, I'm here, my friend. Good to be here.
Okay. Yeah. And yeah, of course, Assad supports Australia and Pakistan. Australia is already out alongside the other team. We don't talk about. We'll
Yeah,
say absolutely.
We will be speaking
Uh,
about that, but we'll be respectful. Yeah.
remaining
Nah,
time.
you can. I'm not going to be respectful to them. We're known as a choker, so yeah.
Well, can I just
So
say
yeah.
something? I think going off those results, where I think for us, okay, so Australia go out, bat Afghanistan, then the focus shifts to Pakistan, where they need some results going their way to go through. Of luck, there's no denying that to go through. There was definitely luck involved in that, but probably hours ahead. So
Yeah. But we'll get into everything. But we'll first start off with the some. We'll start off with the review of some of the uh, games. Of course, Ireland lost to New Zealand. Um, we're not going to speak a lot about this game because it was rather comfortable for New Zealand. Um, of course, they put up a good total, and Ireland they just were just outnumbered, just destroyed by the quality um, of them of New Zealand. Um, but Manny, your quick thoughts on that before we move on to the Australian game?
Yeah, once again, it was another game where New Zealand effectively secured their qualification for the semi-finals, and for Ireland, the result was, in some ways, academic. Although I believe if they were able to shock the New Zealanders, they would have certainly helped out Australia and England, and they possibly would have, done their bit to secure qualification for the next stage of the tournament because. What happens? I mean, not the next stage, the next tournament, which will be held a few years from now, because I believe the top 8 teams will automatically qualify. And if memory serves me right, the next tournament will in fact be held in the West Indies. So the West Indies make up for their dismal failure this time around by qualifying as hosts. And again, it was just a case of, New Zealand doing everything they needed to do, being exceptionally efficient, and Ireland, starting their reply fairly well enough, but not being able to sustain it. After Paul Stirling and Andy Balbirnie went, following that partnership of 68, it was just wickets at regular intervals, no real partnerships, and it was just a matter of time before they were all skittled out. Hardly anyone except for George Dockrell, was able to really come in and really make a substantial contribution. And of course, Bolt aside, the other bowlers were they did that they did what they had to do. They took wickets. And of course, as far as the batting is concerned, it was good to see Williamson playing himself back into form. Surprisingly, neither one of Allen nor Conway were dropped, so no game for Martin Guptill here. But again, they recovered from the loss to England by doing everything they needed to do with the bat and the ball. 2 golden, but of course, one of the highlights that must be mentioned, of course, was the hat trick by Josh Little at the very end. So at least we will remember Ireland having been at this World Cup. Shock defeat of England, and then, of course, a hat trick in this round. And let's not forget they had to beat the West Indies. And I believe it was who else did they beat? I don't quite. But yeah, they beat the West Indies and who the hell was the other one, man? And Scotland to qualify. So we'll remember Ireland having been at this World Cup. So and I don't think they were able to do enough to earn qualification for the next tournament. But a lot of these associate nations, like Ireland, have shown that they can definitely play with a lot more and with a lot more exposure. They will improve. Hopefully, they will solve the problems in their middle order and become a lot more consistent. Because it's wonderful to see them playing and doing well. Asad, you've had your share of hairy moments against some of the associate teams this tournament as an Aussie and a Pakistani fan. What would you say to that?
Well, there's a lot to touch base on, pretty much, because I think in the first tournament, from an Australian point away, Finn Allen just took us out of the game, and then the batting side, I don't even really let you go into, and then that Sri Lanka game, I think it was like 80% performance, because we had low pass chasing scores. Stoinis got us home in that game, but then after that, it was just like, the game against England got washed out. That hurt us a bit. Then got one against Ireland. The results just didn't help. I think that New Zealand game just ended the tournament there for us final after. Yeah, but in terms of Pakistan, it's definitely been a bit of a roller coaster. Losing, I complain, it was a really good game. Last ball, whatever, just amazing atmosphere was there at the game. It was that did really that one was obviously tough to take, and the game had turned out. Zimbabwe on the up this wicket as well, where half score would be probably 165 or something. So they score like 132, and then there's a lot of talk about Baba and Rizwan. I think partnerships, how slowly they score. I think where they just didn't get going, and then Sharma Surdis, Ahmed, all these guys couldn't get going. It was just a shambles because we need 43 off 39, and to lose from that position I still to this day, I think we probably deserve to qualify, but luck attached to it. But who knows? I guess that South African game saw us plenty as well, because I guess that was pretty much a die game. We lose that. We had one game in spare, so win that, then beat Netherlands, and then also throw games on the trot, go through. But it's definitely an interesting 12 hours.
Yeah. We'll talk about the Bangladesh-Pakistan game and the Australia-Afghanistan game later on. But Hannah, I think that answers your question. It was just a case of New Zealand being efficient, doing what they had to do, and Ireland providing another moment of the tournament, which won't be forgotten in a hurry. So hopefully that should be good for you. Yeah.
Yeah. But let's move to, of course, wait, before we move, Asad, did you give your thoughts on the New Zealand game?
Yeah, I just did that.
Okay. Then we'll move on to Australia versus Afghanistan. Of course, Australia, they were looking for a big win, but at the end of the day, they couldn't get it, which was a bit disappointing for Australia. But again, Australia lacking that form or just that consistency going into the games. As you look, Aaron Finch, though he tried hard. Oh wait, no, that was the other game. But Australia tried hard and everything. They just don't get going. When it seemed like they were going to put up this massive total, they just fell apart. Australia, at the depth. So yeah, but Afghanistan, and what what's a comeback from them? It seems like they were dead. They they were just scraping for any type of result, and they just didn't get that. Lusat, of course, this is one of your teams. Um, what was your thoughts on that performance?
Look, I think the way it all went down was pretty disappointing because on the Adelaide Oval pitch, 168, I already thought like, all right, Afghanistan, they've got some hitters off their run, and then we saw what happened with Rashid Khan, just almost getting Afghanistan over the line. While we did win that game, at what cost? We still got knocked out. So I just don't think, like I said before, that net run rate really did hurt us. And we saw in the earlier game that New Zealand, I saw how Mitsana got the ball to turn. I think Zampa should have been utilised better. Stark probably been in those middle overs. So I guess the game plan was why Rashid Khan got so much confidence in his batting as well. So I guess got a World Cup coming up in 12 months. Obviously, that's the ODI format, but the way we played questions asked.
Yeah, true. But Manny, your thoughts to that game?
Yeah, we did the watch along for that, Hanno, if you remember, and all I could say was, that was probably the game which, in my opinion, sealed Australia's fate, because without the heavy wind they needed, there was no way that they were going to do enough to, overhaul either England's or definitely not New Zealand's run rate in order to qualify. And that pretty much summed up their tournament. I mean, obviously, there was a lot of muddled thinking in the way they went about things. I look back to the New Zealand-Australia game, which was spoken about by Asad earlier. I think Aaron Finch will definitely look back on that game and his decision to bowl first after winning the toss as the decision which, really set Australia back in this tournament. And even here as well, there were some changes made to the Australian side, most notably Stephen Smith coming in, and also Mitchell Stark being dropped. And I think it was interesting to hear the assistant coach, Daniel Vittori, himself a Kiwi, saying that the reason why Stark had been dropped was tactical more than anything else. And I couldn't even see why, because I think you'll agree with me, Asad, that of all of the fast bowlers in the Australian squad, Stark was the one who was getting the ball to, swing and nip and really looking incisive. I wasn't too impressed by Cummins, for instance, and the way he was bowling. And, dropping him and bringing in someone like Kane Richardson, I would assume that maybe they thought that Richardson would bring along some extra pace, perhaps. And then, of course, Zampa played his role as a spinner, but the batsman never really got going, and it was once again left to Glenn Maxwell to do the business. I mean, certainly Cameron Green failed, Stephen Smith also failed. Mitch Marsh did a good job before holding out, and then Maxwell near the end had to effectively anchor the middle order. It just summed up for me, and especially with the bowling as well, which could have been a lot better. And the fact that they were able to allow Rashid Khan to come back into it and very nearly snatch the match away from them, I think it just summed up their whole campaign. It was muddled thinking, not really having any ideas. And I think with Aaron Finch and Matthew Wade on the wrong side of their 30s, this could very well be their last limited overs involvement. I don't see them being a part of the ODI team for the upcoming World Cup, and it'll be interesting to see if there are any further changes made to that team in order to make them better prepared to play in that World Cup in a year's time.
Yeah, can I just add on to that? I definitely agree, because we've seen it with Miss Stark was dropping, you need the extra pace and the add to 12 overs. We saw how he was utilised, so I think that strategy definitely worked well for him. But to bring Kane Richardson on because he plays for South Australia in domestic cricket, that's probably, I can think, the only reason why, the pitch conditions and the suitability. But it hasn't worked, obviously, with the runs how close they've gained this game on the plane on the way to London. And I just thinking Australia, You can go through, but anyway.
Yeah, yeah. Um, um, okay, no. But of course, but yeah, I would agree with you guys. Then we move on to Sri Lanka versus England. Sri Lanka again. I think Assad was what he was so close to maybe what. So if England lost, would Australia would have gone through, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
On Assad, uh, gutting for you. Sri Lanka so close, yet so far at the end, and then
100%.
just
Because
England.
it was it was like
No, sure,
England
come
were
on.
so much there. I thought like, all right, this is Caird in Australia, just pack your bags, it's over. But the game was pretty impressive. You think like, all right, there's a bit of twists and turns left in this game, but England's it was my first day in England as well, so it didn't help any better. But by that, like I said, that New Zealand game just really spelled it.
Yeah, fair enough. But Manny, of course, you're the England fan. I see Wolf is going crazy. He wants England to win, and I don't think they will beat India because India are going to win it all. No, they're not. They're rubbish. I'm just joking. But yeah, come on, England, says Wolf. But yeah, Manny, your thoughts on on England? How did they do?
I mean, what can I say? I mean, at the start, I was actually fearful because when Dasun Shinaka won the toss and opted to bat first on the pitch where it was recommended that you bat first, I was actually in fear because, especially taking a look at the way Pathum Nissanka and Kushal Mendes were starting. Of course, Mendes holed out at the end of the fourth over, but Nissanka carried on in his merry way. It wasn't just that they were able to find the boundaries as well, but the opening bowlers strayed too often on leg. And the thing about these Asian batsmen, whether they're Indian, Pakistani, or Sri Lankan, and I'm sure Assad you can agree with me on this, or Bangladeshi, is that if as a fast bowler you end up bowling and you end up straying all the way to the batsman's leg, and the batsman knows it's going down the leg, all he has to do is just if he's a right-hander, he flicks his bat that way and it just sails over the boundary. And you don't even have any fielders posted on the boundary because almost all of them are in the 15-yard circle. So if you can't bowl to your field, you're going to be punished, and that's exactly what happened with England's opening bowlers. And certainly at
Yeah,
the end of the fifth
Manny,
over,
just
when
check private chat.
yeah, I will. And yep. Yeah, to answer your question, Werewolf, I'll bring your chat in. Assad supports both Australia and Pakistan. I believe, yeah, England. Yeah, I'll come to your chat, your comments about England. I promise you that. Now, so at the end of the fifth over, of course, Sri Lanka were 51 for 1 and going along swimmingly, and certainly in the company of Dhananjaya De Silva, Nissanka was continuing to bat well, and De Silva, of course, had top scored with 66 against Afghanistan the match before. So I was really feeling fearful. And it was really only the introduction of, I think Butler started off by bowling 4 of his seamers in Stokes, Wokes, Wood, and Curran. Curran looked a little bit decent. At least he was able to prove why he was England's leading wicket taker by bowling for the most part to a consistent length. And I think it was only when the spinners came in, Adil Rashid and Liam Livingstone with their brand of leg spin, were we able to start, pegging the Sri Lankans back. And I want to give Jos Buttler credit. The way he was able to get his bowlers to contain the batsmen magnificently was just wonderful. After 5 overs, they were 52 for 1, but to end up being restricted to 141 for 8, especially with those wickets falling in the last over bowled by Mark Wood. And of course, Rashid doing a brilliant job containing things with 1 for 16 off 4 overs. He was able to, bowl keep that tight line, that attacking line that you want from a leg spin. And I'm sure, Asad, you can agree that Adam Zampa was able to do something similar for Australia. Certainly, Shadab Khan played a similar role for Pakistan, and we will talk about him as well when we talk about Pakistan. It seems to me as though leg spin is probably the way to go in Australia, because most of the left arm spinners that have bowled so far, I mean, almost all of them have pretty much been hit out of the park. And the off spinners, unless you're able to bowl a really, really tight attacking line and not bowl too straight, inviting the batsman to come down the track and hit you, you might not get the economy rate you want. You might not get the wickets you want. So leg spin pretty much is the way to go. And even Liam Livingstone came on with his part-time leg breaks, and Moeen Ali had an over in between. We contained them magnificently, and it made me so happy, because chasing was always going to be difficult on this Sydney wicket, which had been used a lot during the group stage. And again, with Joss Buttler and Alex Hales coming back into form at the best possible time, they had another terrific partnership for the first wicket, 75 runs, only for Buttler to play a rather injudicious shot and lose his wicket with the ball heading over to mid-wicket. And then, of course, I think you Aussies have a joke about England saying it wouldn't be an England side without a mid-order collapse. And it's not just an Aussie joke, it's a worldwide joke. We all know about that. And that's when, even after Ben Stokes came in, Alex Hales lost his wicket, just prodding back to the bowler, 3 runs away from what would have been a magnificent 50. And then Harry Brook came in, hold out. Liam Livingstone came in and hold out. Moeen Ali came in and hold out. Sam Curran came in, didn't last too long. And it was left to Ben Stokes to play that that anchor role, really, to shepherd England through. And it wasn't so much that we found it difficult to, get the runs. It's just that a lot of the wickets that we lost could have been very easily avoided. And that really had me tearing my hair out. I went from fear to joy to ecstasy to agony to sheer bleeding relief at the end. And if you're able to watch that watch along on playback, Asad, you can see the emotions and the inflections on my face as I was doing the commentary. It's easy to say that, we marshaled it well enough and we got through, and we should give ourselves credit for braving that Sydney pitch, thanks to Chris Woakes being able to find the boundary at point and finally, soothing our nerves. But we have some problems, and coming up to the semi-final against India, I know that Wolf, you're definitely confident about England beating India, but there's still some way to go. And yes, I'm not too sure that the entire 11 is packed with players who can bowl and bat, who are genuine all-rounders in that regard. I mean, certainly, as I've said, Woakes can certainly hit it. Not too sure about Wood and Rashid, though, and I think Rashid will have to play. And Moeen Ali, as you've said, is so underrated. He can certainly bat well, and his off-spin bowling is quite important. But never mind the fact that we struggled against the spin of both Hasaranga and, to some extent, Rashid Khan. Again, when we were playing Afghanistan, we might be in a situation where India could recall their leg spinner, Yuzvendra Chahal, to come and play against us. And unless we are well trained to, attack him instead of Akshar Patel, who should probably be dropped, and I don't think Deepak Hooda will be selected either, England could very well be up a gum tree. One thing I will say is that we have certainly evolved in some ways into a team that can both set a target and defend that, and also chase a target fairly well enough. Had we failed to qualify, we would, like Pakistan, have looked back on that shock loss to Ireland and said that could have cost us dearly. And that's just another idea of how fine these margins are. I think, when we played against New Zealand, just the way Pakistan played against South Africa, that showed the team at its best. And it was wonderful that Buttler and Hales were able to get back into form, and the bowlers to a man responded. But as delighted as I am that England are in the semi-finals, of course, at the expense of Australia. Sorry, I had to say that, mate. We still have a few problems. We still need to make sure that we get everything in order. And with news that David Malan might not be fit for the semi-final, we might have to rejig our batting orders. So we are not out of the woods quite yet.
I'll just touch on that. So, obviously, Tim Moutham already mouthwater for steak, but the way it goes back to Pakistan as well, just down and out, they were. I guess some results did go their way. Bet South Africa, we've already covered that, but David Milan's under injury cloud. Mark Wood, him might not even pull up to his. But look at Adelaide. India have a pretty good record. Kohli has a very good record. Been in some serious touch. Arshdeep Singh, Bhuvneshwar Kumar really generating some swing in Australia. We know that they're batting Josh Butler just so lofty hitters. You know, Phil Salt, if he comes in for a make it throw. And then we've got Liam Livingstone as well. He can definitely hit it as well. Then you go with the go-to bowler for England, just always there. And then Mark Wood, just that express pace. Got this Moeen Ali. I'm just wondering now that would England go with Chris Jordan, maybe a fourth place? So, you know, it's really like I'm not too sure. Even with the New Zealand game, Pakistan, New Zealand, you know, he got like 4 wickets here against South Africa in his last game. So it wasn't that good last game at the SCG. I think, you know, we've seen a lot of spin dictated games, like you mentioned. So I'm not sure what New Zealand are doing. You know, it's Sodhi, Mitsano, like the players. I'm really worried. What I am worried about is players like Devin Clowney going as well. But you know, the way this tournament has really been in the past, we just don't know because like of spin and pace, like we've seen with India and Pakistan.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, you know, one good thing is that England won't be playing at Sydney again because, and I think it's fair, I think I can speak for all the England batsmen when I say that if they never get to play at Sydney again, it will be too soon. It will be New Zealand and Pakistan who will be playing. And of course, as you've mentioned, you know, batting second on that Sydney pitch, especially given that they're playing first on a Wednesday, that's going to be all the more difficult. And Adelaide, as you said, could be a worry. But another interesting stat is that that ground has well been suited to the team batting second. So I'm not too sure we would go with Chris Jordan as a pace option because obviously we've got to keep Adil Rashid as our main bowler. So do we therefore does that and if we were to fit in Chris Jordan, I don't know if we can afford to do without Moeen Ali as an all-rounder because obviously the off-spin he provides has been, you know, very tight. He's often opened the bowling whenever we defended, as he did against New Zealand, and he's bowled to a tight line, not really giving the batsman much room to come down the track. He hasn't bowled short. He hasn't bowled too wide. So, do we perhaps get rid of Liam Livingstone, who's performed quite well, decently well with the bat so far? It's an interesting conundrum, and certainly Chris Jordan has been a hero in the field as a substitute fielder. Could his bowling be an option? That's something that England will have to think about, and certainly an extra pace option could, you know, rattle India, especially with the likes of Kohli and Yadav in the form they're in. So it's an interesting conundrum for sure, and that is something that we will need to consider. And obviously, Hano isn't back yet, so we're now going to go to the next set of games. That was, of course, the final day's play in the group, and that was in Group 2. Obviously, we cannot discuss the Netherlands-South Africa match without our host back here. But you and I are going to have a nice chin wag about Pakistan and Bangladesh. And there was some talk on Twitter, mind you, of Pakistan granting honorary citizenship to the former South African international Roelof van der Merwe, who took that terrific catch, which ended up, you know, breaking the back of the South African chase. I believe he caught out David Miller. They needed 47 from 26 at that point, but with Miller gone, it was only a matter of time. And, you know, when you found out that the match against Bangladesh, far from being merely academic, ended up effectively being a knockout, how did you feel on hearing the result from that game between the Netherlands and South Africa, and how do you think how much confidence do you think that gave to the Pakistanis in the way they went about their game?
Well, the very first thing that's happened is I think when I wake up, it was like 4 a.m. here. I was Twitter going off while my Instagram messages, like, so, you know, going, I look at like, I was like, nah, I'm probably driving. So I'll look everywhere. I look at the ICC website. I'm like, okay, Persia, yeah, because like while the Dutch may have done something for us, we still could already keep a lid on every celebration possible. Some of my friends like we still need to beat Bangladesh in this tournament like we've seen. So on paper, it was obviously a game that didn't have much at stake. We were gone. So with that result just coming up, it was like it's head. Now that Pakistan actually have a chance to go through. And in regards to the Pakistan-Bangladesh, bowling was pretty. I think with the bowling, it did start. It wasn't as composed as it was at start. I think it was okay. Went for 14 of his two, and then after recovered pretty nicely. And then we saw with Shadab as well, and the total was really good with the Pakistan bowling. You know, they'd really tying it. The total was making it easy for the batters. But one thing I really was disappointed was with 10, just very, very slow. And then Mohammed Harris comes in. He pretty much really embarrasses this other because, like, for a total you need 128. It shouldn't be that. I just don't think Bubba's really been getting going in this tournament. So the depth is bowling, but just the form-wise thing, I've never really seen it. But you know, we've moved. We just bet them in the Tri Series before. So I hope that does, in a way, some confidence for the team. By the luck we're saying, also we'll come to the South African Netherlands result once a good friend. You know, it's definitely going to be an interesting game tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, certainly an analysis of the match. You know, of course, Bangladesh, thanks to their opening. This time it was Najmul Hussain who started off well with a fairly sedate but composed 54 of 48 balls with 7 fours, and Liton Das, who starred against India, not quite getting into the groove. Samia Sarkar came in. And I think it's fair to say that the decision to have dropped Sarkar and play Shariful Hassan, I think that's his name, it backfired against India very badly because he was hit literally all around the park, and that made the difference between what could potentially have been a damaging defeat for India and what ended up being a close victory. And I remember following that, seeing the Bangladesh ecstasy at being ahead of the Duckworth-Lewis par score, only for that to turn into agony as the match went on. And the biggest controversy, of course, was the incident involving the captain Shakib Al Hassan, who was out for a Golden Duck LBW, but apparently the it wasn't it wasn't considered to be out to many people, but he was eventually adjudicated to have been out. I will admit that I didn't see that coming into the game, and I think I will have to, take a look at that myself. But certainly that, turned the screw in a way, because without their inspirational captain, they couldn't really do very much. I know Afif chipped in with 24, but then the rest of the batsmen just folded like a pack of cards. And it was good from my side to see, from your side, obviously, to see Shaheen Afridi back fit and back among the wickets. And of course, Shadab Khan continuing to do well. And Haris Rauf, of course, picking up a wicket, as did Iftikhar Ahmed. And of course, as you're going to talk about Mohammed Harris later on. But again, the opening partnership was a bit of a worry because although Babar Azam and Rizwan were able to get back into some decent scores, they were very slow in their approach. And obviously, the 57-run partnership took more than half the game. And it was only, as you said, when Harris came in that there was some acceleration, and then Shan Masood followed suit. Harris is an interesting case because he came in to replace Fakhar Zaman, whose leg and knee injury had just, flared up a bit. And against, I believe it was against South Africa, he came in and played a really good hand. And then now he's continued that form. And I think, in some ways, Harris might well have been your savior, perhaps.
Yeah, 100%. I think going to the South Africa game, we didn't really know much about this guy. So definitely coming into the scene, Fakhar Zaman, obviously a huge loss. He's definitely at the start probably dropped Baba down to number 3 because the intent obviously isn't there. It's like with Baba and Rizwan out there against Bangladesh, it's like we had a foot on the brake, and then when we could really, then we had the light license to really go. But I think there's about how you know they add up a lot of the run rate. You know, you don't want to be saying that going to obviously the semi-final game. There's no tomorrow. You've got to go out all guns. And then also for the Sharkib incident, obviously I saw it live. I don't agree conclusive enough. Obviously the soft signal was not out, I believe, and I just can't fathom. You get the conclusion that that's out. I just don't get it. So obviously it's not a good look. I think there needs to be an inquest on this once the tournament is over. So these things just don't happen again because like so you're gonna have the discussions and obviously it's not gonna be a good look for the game. But I think good line hand in the bowling. So I got the big wicket of Shanto Hussain, who's going with 50 runs as well in that game. Like, it was going to take the game away from us. But I think the bowling side obviously doesn't really need much. The batting is definitely raising a few eyebrows at the moment. Going into game with New Zealand, Tim Southey, Trent Mitsand, even Lockie Ferguson, who generates a lot of bounce on the SCG wicket. So it's going to be a game of who blinks first. But, going to these last group stage matches, we saw how England just showed so much intent. It was just like, this is textbook cricket, right?
Yeah, I think England's key in facing Balls and Southey that day was not to be cowed by fear, but also just to play them on merit and stand up to them. And it was terrific to see them post that partnership. So unless Rizwan and Azam come out of their shell, they could be in for a world of trouble, and it'll be left to Iftikhar Ahmed, Shan Masood, and company to try and pull you out of a rabbit hole, just like they did against India and just like they did against South Africa. So, there are problems, yeah?
I think what I would also say is, like, even before this tour, I think it was the Asia Cup. So, in the final against Sri Lanka, the bowlers really set up us for victory, had a really good role in the batting. He took Sri Lanka to 150, 160 odd. Obviously, we needed to get the runs going pretty steadily because the run rate on a Dubai pitch, wouldn't be the way we saw with Babar Azam. Obviously fell ill. In fact, Zaman, he was injured. He got out on very slow, very timid in his approach. And then the tri series, I guess, like a bit of what they had going into this World Cup. But days ago, obviously, it's not a pretty good sign. It just shows that the confidence is not really there. I'm not too sure how you go up against like players like Williams and in contrast to Ali really rotate the strike. I think a player I really worry about is Finn Allen. He's obviously had a good record at the SCG. Obviously, like we saw in Australia, the Devon Conway as well. As well, Jimmy Nation. He's a very dangerous hitter as well. So I think we just need a really kid, turn up on the day.
Agreed. I mean, they bat deep, and Allen and Conway were able to get back into some form, so it'll be interesting indeed. And Hannah, now that you're back, do you want to talk about the India-Zimbabwe game or the Netherlands-South Africa game?
I will give my quick thoughts on the South African game. So first of all, I want to say the guys who, first of all, coaching staff, the players, you all are flipping rubbish, terrible. You are flipping shite because how don't you turn up against the Netherlands? The Netherlands of all teams. It's not like a big team. It's just a team who qualified on luck almost. Awful. So yeah, just awful everywhere around the pitch. And they have to look at the coaching, they have to look at the players. And I think some of the players might leave in the leave the national team, I think. So yeah, but awful.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I'm not too sure that there will be too many people who might leave the team. I can't think of one who might be asked to step aside, but certainly one change which will have to happen is, in my opinion, is Tenda Bavuma, resigning as captain, because I get what you're saying, Hanno, that they want to have a non-white captain, but he has said that he will think about it, and certainly he spoke about how the criticism of his form got to him. He did look to be getting back into some form against Pakistan, but this time around he couldn't get a score. And certainly when it came to the Dutch batting, I didn't even want to mention this, but there were 4 people in that Netherlands side who, in fact, were born in South Africa. Mention, of course, must be given to Roelof van der Merwe, who didn't bat, but did bowl an over, and of course took that splendid. He bowled 2 overs, in fact, and took that splendid match-winning catch to dismiss David Miller. So, that's also got to be a kick in the teeth. But if we take a look once again at the Dutch batting, again, there were starts, decent scores, and then Colin Ackerman, sort of was the star there with 41 off 26 balls with 2 big sixes and 3 fours. And then Tom Cooper also making sure he chipped in with a more than decent hand. Decent enough start as well from Stefan Meiber and Max O'Dowd. And they ended up posting a fairly decent total. And it was rather shocking to see how the South African pacers, who had been so impressive earlier on in the tournament, were just effectively smacked around the ground. Parnell, Rabada, and Ngidi were, very expensive. Only Henrik Nortje with 1 for 10 or 4 proved his mettle. Keshav Maharaj also coming back to the side and taking a couple of wickets, and maybe he should never have been dropped for Tabraiz Shamsi against Pakistan. And it's sort of another reminder that just like the off spinner, the left arm spinner also has to be very conscious of the line he bowls. He cannot allow himself to stray and run the risk of the batsman coming down the track and hitting him. And left-handers, of course, do get to have they do have the loop and the arm ball, so they can be dangerous on their day. But they also have to be. They're also at risk of being hit out of the park. But that's pretty much how the batting went, and then for Holland, and the bowling went for South Africa. And then there were no starts among the there were starts among the South African batsmen, but no real substantial scores. I think as long as Miller and Klaassen were still at the crease, there was some hope, and maybe they would be able to do something. But the Dutch bowlers were very impressive in the way they stuck to their task. Klaassen with 2 for 20. Brandon Glover, the undisputed star, with 3 for 9, pretty much taking some very important middle over wickets of Rousseau and Miller and Wayne Parnell. And it was just a case where, again, I don't know if you would even call it a choke in that sense of the word, because Graham Smith is very fond of saying that the definition of a choke is when you come close to winning only to stumble at the finish line. But here, South Africa were never really in contention. But to me, it's pretty much a case of sour grapes or really rotten boerewors, whatever you prefer. And this, of course, was the match which ended up giving Pakistan new life and ended up enabling them to, qualify. But it's just another number. Huh?
Moeen Ali is not the GOAT. No, he's not the GOAT.
Dan Day. I take it you're another England fan. You'll be cheering for us on Thursday. Make sure you join us, Dan, yeah? Good man, mate. And, so, Asad, you obviously were asleep, I think, when this match was being played. You had no idea what was going on, and then the flurry of text messages that came would have, really shocked you and delighted you. I wonder if you got to see any highlights of that game, mate.
I've seen highlights of the game for like 100 times already. I think Colin Ackerman, that cameo performance is getting a heroic status in Pakistan back home. No, it was a good all-round performance. I think they needed 4th place if we won as well. So it was all cherries all around the group. They helped us, we helped them. But I guess it was like for South Africa, like you said, a choke if they weren't in contention in the first place. So it was just like decision. I understand they want a non-white captain, but it's about the team at the end of the day, not personal discussing on the team. So if Timber Bavuma, if he really wants to invest in the team's future, I've said it before in the group chat as well. Maybe Aiden Markram could be a good. The options are open because South Africa have such a good team. The bowling's there, Nortje's there, Rabada's always there. You've got Ngidi as well, and Parnell. Then the batting is good as well. We saw this against Bangladesh. A really, really solid South African performance for us. A bit of a downhill spiral, but the way I'm seeing with this World Cup, we've seen a lot of flaws from each time. We've seen with Australia what they need to do, and now South Africa. So what's the next few months are going to look like for South Africa before the World Cup in 12 months?
Yeah, and it's interesting because there's also going to be a rugby connection in this because, of course, in contrast to the cricket team, as Hanno will testify, South Africa's rugby team are the nation's pride and joy. And it was, of course, a black captain, Siya Kolisi, who led them to that magnificent win in the World Cup. And there were quite a few star players in that team who were also black. I look at the likes of Tendai Mtawarira, the Zimbabwean-born prop who retired after that turn with over 100 caps to his name. And even, of course, that's in stark contrast to the 2007 winners, where I believe they had Brian Habana and maybe one or two others. But this time around, the rugby team was well stocked with black players who were worth their place in the side. Cricket in South Africa has always suffered from problems of trying to, shift to the coloured and black power base because obviously the talent is there. And I think it's like the way they seem to have gone about it has been a bit of a problem, and it's also resulted in several of their best white players deciding to up sticks and move to places like England and Australia and New Zealand, where they could forge careers for themselves. And of course, as an England fan, I can tell you that over the course of history, we've benefited from some of the best that South Africa has had to offer in terms of cricketing talent. Basil D'Oliveira, Alan Lamb, Robin Smith, and then of course Kevin Peterson and Jonathan Trott, and a few, and of course Keaton Jennings, who's fought his way back. But there's still a huge, very sensitive, subterfuge and issue with South African cricket, especially with regard to racism, and a lot of work has to be done. And I just don't know necessarily if Mark Boucher, for all of his experience and how brilliant a servant he was to South African cricket, is necessarily the right man who has that kind of sensitivity. And I think there are going to be a lot of issues right now. And I think a lot of black and colored players will need to feel as though they don't want to be patronized. Of course, this team now has more than a few black players. Obviously, you look at Rabada and Ngidi, the two fast bowlers, and then Parnell is also technically classed as a colored player. Bavuma, obviously, and then Maharaj is also, I wouldn't call him a quota player.
I think it was it.
Hannah, you were saying something?
Sorry about that. So I'm just on Kings while I'm doing this. So yeah, sorry about that.
No, don't worry about that. But obviously, I think in the end, what I want to say is that there has to be a lot of work done to try and make sure that a lot of the black and coloured players actually do feel comfortable and do take pride in playing for South Africa. And I'm not too sure that simply having a black or coloured player as captain will, bring that about. It's got to sort of be on merit, but the black players should not be patronized. They also need to feel as though they're in the team on merit. And certainly in the case of Ngidi and Rabada, they're there on merit, and they've bowled well this tournament. They just had an off day against the Dutch. But as a South African, I'd like to know your thoughts on all of that, and if you find anything I'm saying to be either rubbish or anything or fact.
I just think there needs to be consistency. If you know that black or colored player is not good enough, then don't pick him. That is my stance on it. If you know it's not good enough, and I know this quota rule which forces them to have such of amount of um, like black or colored players into the team. I just think that needs to be scrapped because if the player is not good enough, he shouldn't play. And if there's better players, if they're white, it doesn't matter. But if they're white and they're better than them, why should he play? Why should the black or colored player play? Um, and same for the white. It's vice versa. The white player is not good enough. Let the black or colored player play. So yeah,
Exactly, and that certainly lends fuel to the fire that maybe Bavuma should have been dropped as captain in order to help him rediscover his form, and maybe a more attacking batting lineup and an informed lineup would have made some difference in the final analysis, perhaps.
yeah.
Right. So we've got one match left. I don't know where Asad's gone, but the final
I
match is,
think
of
his
course,
connection. I think his connection.
so, yes,
But
he'll be coming back. But there's the India-Zimbabwe match next, and I don't know if that really needs any mention.
yeah, no, I don't think we need to talk about that.
Yeah, just a
And
few lines. India doing what they had to do, crushing Zimbabwe, who were never in the contest, qualifying as group winners. All's well that ends well.
yeah,
How good game. They call
Are
him
you
Sky. I think. Unbelievable.
so yeah. But is there any thoughts from anything to add on the games?
Not really, no. I think we can. Do you want to talk? We can do a preview of the semi-finals and what we
Yeah,
might
yeah.
expect,
We'll
perhaps.
move on to that. That so yeah, of course, the first game is England versus Pakistan. But I'm said if South Africa doesn't make it, I'm rooting for these two teams, and one of these two teams is tournament. Um, tournament ends tomorrow, but I don't know. I, I know how this game is going to go. It's on a knife edge. You possibly you could say New Zealand are more of the favourites because they have looked more like a complete team. Pakistan, the bowlers struggling. Sorry, not bowlers, batters, openers struggling. And so yeah, but Asa, of course, it's your team. What are your thoughts? Can Pakistan do it? Can they go to the final of the T20 World Cup 2022, or will they bottle it again in the semi-final?
Look, it's cut thread through cricket now. It's like semi-final. There's no tomorrow, and it's like I don't think they're favourites, but they played a lot of T20 cricket going into this tournament. They played the Asia Cup and T20s against England. That was a very scrappy affair as well. Then 4 days later again, I was definitely worried if Pakistan players have a burnout from all this compression of they've played New Zealand a lot in the past 2 races as well in the tri-series. So figured out, but it's on a neutral venue. I'm not. We know New Zealand play pretty well at the end. It's definitely interesting to see what they do from a bowling side of view as well. How then Conway, Finn Allen, these are the lofty hitters, and then you go into the depth as well. I mentioned before Jimmy Nation as well, but there's no weather factor as well. The weather's fine because what was actually going to happen is if there was rain on both days, then New Zealand and I think India right points. I think so. I think that from that side, it's pretty positive. But New Zealand are favourites just based off how they're playing compact, playing plays compared to us. But it's a catch to turn up, or do they play like Pakistan? If that makes sense.
Hello? I think he's muted himself, and I think I'm going to give my analysis
When
of the
last
game.
did that happen? At your own turf. Turf. So yeah, but no. Well done, Palace. Yeah. Up the Eagles.
Up the Eagles.
But
I think
Manny,
he
you were
might
gonna.
be. Yeah. I was actually going to give my thoughts on that. I mean, obviously, as you've mentioned, it looks as though New Zealand will be going with an unchanged team, which means that there will be no return for Guptill, and certainly none of the bowlers are going to be chopped. But once again, Bolt and Southey will hold key. And yeah, you back, Hanno? Ah. Still having some issues with this connection, but as I said, the bowlers will hold.
Yeah, sorry, I'm back.
Yeah, so as I've said, the bowlers are obviously going to hold key, and I think it's fair to say, Asad, that Pakistan's opening batsmen will once again be tested. They probably won't want to, break that opening combination per se, but they're going to be up against it, and they're probably going to have to take inspiration from the way Butler and Hales played against Bolt and Southey, and just say, you know what, we're not going to let you cower us interfere. We're just going to start hitting you out of the park, and it's going to be important for them to do well because they will set the tone. And if they're able to get a decent score, then certainly the way Iftikhar Ahmed and others and other middle order batsmen have done well this tournament, there can possibly be a chance of a decent total if they're batting first, or possibly a good enough chase. Because although Lockie Ferguson has a happy knack of picking up wickets, and Santner and Sodhi, the left arm spinner and the sort of offish leg spinner, have done quite well economically. It's a question of Pakistan being able to read them carefully and treat them with respect, but not too much respect. And that's going to be sort of the way to go about it. New Zealand's batting is always going to be dangerous, but with Shaheen Afridi coming back into form, he could very well end up leading the way. And left arm seamers have been very profitable this tournament. They've been proficient. They've picked up the wickets. You just need to look at the scorecards: Sam Curran, Mitchell Starc, Arshdeep Singh, Trent Bolt, of course, and then Shaheen Afridi. So you can't look too far from that.
Yeah, you can't. But Mani, I don't know. Or Asad, I don't know. One of you free maybe to do a watch along to this game? Mani?
I'm not too sure, to be honest.
I could join you. I could join you tomorrow for a little. Wait a minute. Tomorrow's Wednesday, isn't it? Yeah, I think I'll be free. I'll be free. I'll join you. Definitely.
Because I
Oh,
can
let's go.
join. I can join from around the second innings.
Brilliant.
Now, in almost at the end, I can join. At the end,
Absolutely brilliant. I mean, now I've just realised the daylight savings has, ended. So yeah, I can certainly look to. I'll do that. The watch along definitely, and of course, I'm certainly looking to do a watch along for the England-India game, and I think we're going to talk about that now, aren't we?
Yeah. England, India. The question on everyone's mind is how far is India going to beat England? How much runs are Virat Kohli going to get? That's a big thing. And how many runs is Ben Stokes going to get slapped for? And how many wickets will Arshdeep Singh take? Yeah, I'm going to stick my neck out of the line. India are going to slaughter England. It's not even going to be a contest. England will be like Chelsea on Sunday. It's going to be a walk in a park for India. Yeah, go on. India will beat them lots and will end up in hard to say. I'm going to go with my gut. My heart wants to say New Zealand, but the final is going to be Pakistan versus India, and Pakistan will win it all. That's my prediction.
Aren't you cocky and aren't you confident? Asad, you want to take? You want to continue off of that?
Look, I'm going to put the handbrake on that. Oh yes, Pucks are making it. There's no question about it. Yes, we are. No. Stop. The way I wouldn't trust them for a minute because one day you just don't know what's going to turn up with this team. The England-India game, look, I don't know who's winning this one. There's just so many personal battles that are going to go for. So what KL Rahul does, he got 15 against the Bangladesh game, I believe so. So, against the England team, it's not going to be easy though, because like we're saying with their bowling, such a resolute unit that's pulled through. He's always a dangerous bowler, and it's really fascinating how even Mohammad Shami go up against the likes of Ben Stokes, Josh Butler. These players, there's a lot of.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to give my thoughts right now. I'll be the first to admit that just as with the match against New Zealand and probably against Sri Lanka as well, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't too apprehensive. And certainly with the way India performed this tournament, except of course against South Africa, who, credit to them, outthought, outbowled, outbatted them, and should have gone through at least based on that result. India had been dominant, but the South Africans that day stuck to a plan, and they were able to prevent India from getting any major partnerships as such. And certainly the batsmen, Markram and Miller, showed how you can take a test match approach and adopt it to T20 cricket, making sure you respected your wicket enough to keep it and then went for the occasional big hit if and when and as the situation desired. One of the things I love about watching England is that they always find a way to solve a problem. And I'll tell you what, if they were able to, if Buttler and Hales were able to flay Bold and Southey to all areas of the ground, I have no doubt in my mind that they should be able to counter Bhuvneshwar Kumar and Arshdeep Singh quite well, because they will adopt that same approach, respect the opening bowlers enough, not give them that much of a chance, and then, of course, show them that they're not afraid and pound them into submission. And then, of course, Shami and Pandya could come in and try their best. Of course, the trump card here for India will be if they decide to bring Yuzvendra Chahal in to provide some leg spin bowling. And I think in preparation for that, England might end up having a few net sessions with Adil Rashid and Liam Livingstone bowling at them to make sure that they're well prepared for anything that could come their way. Because off spinners are asking to be hit if they don't maintain a good line. The left arm spinner, Akshay Patel, will also be hit if he strays out of line. So it will be interesting indeed. And certainly with India's batting, Sharma hasn't really been able to get any big scores. And of course, the captain will be very disappointed in himself that he hasn't been able to do very well. But of course, with Kohli coming, I mean, it's as the poem goes: ashes to ashes and dust to dust. If India are in a pickle, in Virat Kohli they trust. And he's come in and pretty much dug them out of a few hairy problems. And then, of course, Sky himself, Surya Kumar Yadav, he's proven that he is quite simply one of the top batsmen in the world. Another conundrum is, do they drop Dinesh Karthik and bring Rishabh Pant in? An interesting call indeed, because while Karthik has been excellent behind the wickets, his batting, heralded as being terrific in the latter overs, has not really clicked. And I'm not too sure if bringing in someone like Rishabh Pant, even if it is a tactical decision, could be the way to go. So it will be interesting to see how how their team selection pans out. My head says that India might just have a bit more experience, perhaps, but this England team are a bunch of smart cricketers. They're fighting cricketers. They'll find a way to make this competitive. So all I can do is just vote with, just go with a prayer in my heart and say, "Come on, England." I hope the Barmy Army will be singing at the end of the day. So, yeah, it'll be a cracker on a Thursday. I'm looking forward to that, and I'm definitely looking forward to doing the watch along for that game, Hannah.
Yeah. And I think I shall have to go because I know Royce has stream in a few minutes. So yeah, but be up yourself, Marnie. Your prediction: who's going to win New Zealand versus New Zealand and England? Pakistan is going through.
My head will say that New Zealand. No, it looks as though Assad's back, and so
No,
it's
no,
Oris
it's
who's
already.
coming. Yeah, listen, Orest, if you're watching, I will be joining immediately. We're just about to end it,
You're
and I
late.
will hop
You're
off.
late.
Yes, I'm
You're
late. I'm late. I'm late. Yes, I know I'm late. Things happen. Okay. But
All right.
yeah, but this is the very last part, and of course we're on to predictions. New Zealand should beat Pakistan by 30 runs or 5 wickets.
Jeez, that's a big one. Okay, and of course you're going India to win.
Yeah, but it will be tight. I think it will be tight. I think both these teams have certainly played.
Go on, money. India, India, India.
You know what? To heck with it. I'm going to stick my neck out and say it's going to be tight, and that will enable me to stick my neck out and say this. England
Okay.
to win by either 20 runs or 3 wickets.
But I think everyone knows already where they can find you. I'll put the links again in the description because I know you need to go, so we'll end it here. Yep, everyone was watching, pick up as always, up himself. And yeah, we will be back tomorrow with that mushroom. Come on, Pakistan! But my gut is saying Pakistan, but my head and my heart is saying, come on, Black Caps. So yeah, going with my gut, but yeah. Everybody, have a good night. Have a good morning, wherever you are in the world. And peace out.